Now, a special guest with me this afternoon from the platinum-selling band Editors. It's Tom Smith. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Good, thanks, mate. 20 years since Editors' debut album, The Back Room. Later this year, you're going to release a solo album. Why now for a solo album, Tom?
Why now? I guess these things kind of creep up on you, I would say. And it's been, something I've pondered for a while, a few years. And I don't know, I guess those kind of creeping thoughts just became bigger and bigger and bigger until it was like, well, now's the time, I guess. So yeah, Editors finished kind of promoting EBM, which was also a record I didn't write as much as I would usually write for Editors, because that was more collaborative and Blank Mass was involved. So there was less writing for that. So I think perhaps that was part of the push, as it were, with my solo record, to go, well, we've done that now. I'm going to crack on doing my own thing for a bit. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed, shall we say.
How long have you had the songs for?
Here's the thing. So the reason I wanted to do a solo record was because I wanted to be less collaborative. I wanted to be a bit more selfish and present songs in a way how they kind of are when I first write them. Even with Editors' songs and with everything that I've done, I tend to write on an acoustic guitar or piano, and they start from quite a natural place. And I was like, well, now's the time. If I'm going to do a solo record, I want to present these songs like that and not collaborate with the band. Or it crossed my mind to do another record with Andy as well, Smith And Burrows, and I was like, no, this isn't the right time for that either. I want to do my own thing. But in thinking about how I was going to make the record, I ended up working with a friend of mine, Ian Archer, as a producer. But then, so I don't know, it became more collaborative than I was ever expecting. So a lot of the songs kind of were just written in the studio with him over the last year. Most of the songs are fairly new, but you can trace maybe little threads in each song back to any time in the last 6 years. In making a record that I wanted to be less collaborative, it ended up being, on a songwriting kind of level, more collaborative than I ever expected or planned it to be. But he's a beautiful bloke, and I really enjoyed. Yeah, it was nice to find a connection with somebody, and explore that and develop that, songwriting kind of wise.
Tom, why is the album called There's Nothing in the Dark That Isn't There in the Light?
The first song that Ian and I did in the first session together was a song called Deep Dive. And I don't know, when you set out on the start of a process or the beginning of a journey kind of with somebody to create something, like, you never quite know if it's going to work, do you? You don't know. I didn't have a fixed picture of what it was going to sound like or what it was going to be. I had an idea. But in that first session, we kind of wrote Deep Dive, and it all kind of clicked. And I could, at that point, I could picture what we were doing, and I realised that Ian was the right guy to do it. And the song has that lyric in it, right? And that lyric is it felt kind of like fundamental to the whole album, because there is a kind of hope in the record, and there's a kind of like a feeling of kind of depending on other people or people close to you to kind of get through kind of struggles, and that hope and that kind of warmth felt perfectly kind of encapsulated in that lyric.
And the album, it sounds like you, but not like Editors, but a bit like Editors.
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, that's, there's a lot of sense in what you said, even though it was a bit of a mouthful. But of course, most of the songs for Editors, are predominantly written by me. We then collaborate on bringing those things into life. There's been some little shifts in that along the way, but for the most part, that's the way it's always been. And with the band, we've explored different kind of like territories sonically and stylistically, and sometimes things are more guitar orientated, and sometimes things have been more electronic or somewhere in between. But the essence is kind of me singing a sad song, and we can dress it up in 1,000 different ways. So that, of course, is still present on my solo records. Now, like I said before, when I write a song, when the birth of those songs, the seeds of those ideas that grow into the things that you hear, when I've written them, they come from a more natural place. Me singing on an acoustic guitar, or whatever. So, like, I wanted that to be more reflective or more apparent on my solo record. But yeah, of course, there's a big part of me in Editors, not just the voice. So, yeah, makes total sense, Chris.
Do Just like that answer. Tom, is it that you find writing sad songs easy, or is it that you're a sad person?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't think the songs are quite as sad as the casual person would say, or that, you know, people have always talked about how dark editors are, and I've never thought we're quite as dark as people think we are. And when people, fans of the band, who, if you know, when I meet fans and they talk about their favourite moments of our career or lyrics and things, it's always the ones that have kind of warmth and hope and love and are positive, essentially. Casually to hear it, you might think it's a bit more serious or a bit more dark than a lot of other music, I guess. I mean, I've never really thought of ourselves as an out-and-out pop band. We never really tried to do that. I always felt like we exist in an alternative place. But I think very naturally, all from day one, I've always tried to write words that will have some kind of emotional resonance with the listener, you know? So I wouldn't say I'm a sadder person than anybody else, really. I mean, reflective maybe. And I like that hunt for a lyric that's kind of, like I say, is going to kind of tug on the heartstrings, you know. So it's just the way I'm programmed, I guess.
I'm going to play your latest single, Life's for Living. What inspired this, Tom?
I had this a thread of an idea, kind of quite a different song, but it came back, the kind of bridge section of the song, it came back to this kind of motif as life is for living, you know, live it till it's gone. And when I sung that, Ian just kind of stopped me and said, well, kind of forget the rest of the song. But that moment there is something that we should explore. And I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Do you know what I mean? It's about I guess, kind of seizing the day, or kind of, you know, not letting things pass without kind of appreciating stuff, you know. So yeah, life is for living, I guess.
For sure. All right, this is Tom Smith. Life is for Living here on Six Music. And Tom, let's talk some more on the back of this. Tom Smith, Life is for Living. Tom from Editors, whose new solo album, a debut solo album, There Is Nothing in the Dark That Isn't in the Light, comes out at the end of this year. Tom's with me here on Six Music this afternoon. Tom, it's been 20 years of Editors. What music were you into when you were starting the band?
Well, when we started the band, so we were at university, things that were going down, I remember the Strokes were a big thing at that point in time. I remember me and Russell spending a lot of time in his kind of, in halls, you know, in his room, listening to Elbow, Asleep at the Back, their debut record. I was kind of becoming friends with him, and he was kind of came from more of a kind of rock kind of kind of Nirvana and Metallica, and that wasn't really me. It hadn't been me, and I was kind of like trying to get him to listen to like Radiohead and REM and stuff, and yeah, stuff like that, you know.
And can anything ever beat the feeling of getting a band together?
I mean, for me and for us, it's obviously been kind of life changing. You know, it's been you know, meeting those people and connecting with them set me on a path, set us all on a path that, you know, I'm here sat talking to you 20 years later. There's been bumps along the road, but and things have happened, but yeah, essentially we're still kind of doing the thing that we got in that rehearsal room at university and started to do. I remember the feeling when we were playing Bullets for the first time as trying out that tune, and the feeling of it, like, oh, that it just, you know, a group of people kind of coming together to be more than the sum of their parts. You know, it's wicked.
And the Bat Room was a really high impact debut album. Were you ready for all that went with that?
I mean, we were so busy. We were, you know, it was 2 years of non-stop touring, playing every venue on the ladder. You know, that's just the UK, but obviously for us, Europe was a big thing as well, and America on those first two records. So I don't know, was I ready for it? I mean, you just kind of crack on. You know, there was, you know, we got through. It was in, you know, the Back Room kind of like, when it came out, it was doing okay, but it kind of like, it seemed to build momentum throughout that 2 year period. You know, we were re-releasing singles back then, as people tended to do, and it felt like it did have some kind of level of growth. It didn't really feel overnight, certainly in comparison to, you know, we mentioned things like the Strokes or other bands at the time, it felt like there was a little bit more of a slow burn, but it was still a whirlwind. It was still just a lot of fun.
And do you think, Tom, that making music's got easier with age?
No, actually, I think probably. I mean, hard is the wrong word. I mean, it's such a privilege and a pleasure to do what we do, but like, yeah, you kind of have to mine things for longer to get those kind of words and phrases that kind of feel reflective of what you're trying to say. You know, I felt like there was more instances at the start where I'd sit to write a song and 10 minutes later I'd have like Munich, or, you know, now I work on things for like a month till I can feel like I'm ready to play it to the rest of the band, you know, and that's quite common. I find the recording process and being in the studio with the band more rewarding than ever. You know, that's the place now that we're just like at our most comfortable and are having the best time. And I think in the early days, touring was what we wanted to do more than recording. Now it's like, well, if you just leave us in the studio for 2 years, we'll be very happy. Unfortunately, we can't do that. But yeah, certainly that's where we feel more at home now.
So you've been working with the guys, which means there will be more editors at some point.
Yeah, we got to live with the recordings for a little while, and I'll go off, you know, on my little solo kind of adventure for a while, and then next year, yeah, there'll be new editors' materials for sure.
Have the others heard the new album, your solo album?
Yeah, man, they're really supportive. I've got this little tour in September going around the UK and Ireland doing lots of kind of like slightly unusual places and venues and little kind of social clubs and folk clubs and churches and places in the far reaches of Scotland and Ireland, and they're all quite small, but they're all going to come out to a show along the way. They're probably going to help me sell some T-shirts as well, because it's going to be quite a low-key tour. So yeah, they've been really supportive.
And what about more work with the insanely talented Andy Burrows?
Yeah, I mean, so after the last Editors record, we both gave, you know, the idea of making a third Smith and Burrows record. We gave it a bit of a go, and I kind of realised during that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So selfishly, I was kind of like said to Andy, like, "I'm sorry, mate. I'm going to do my own thing for a bit." But I love Andy, and we're still amazing mates. So yeah, we'll pick up that at some point in the future for sure.
All right, thanks so much for being with me this afternoon, Tom. It's such a pleasure to talk to you always. And the new album, There Is Nothing in the Dark That Isn't There in the Light, comes out in December. Thank you so much, Tom from Editors, Tom Smith. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks a lot for that. Nice one.